is to have these roving body scanners, which British, Dutch authorities were talking about 4 or 5 years ago, where they could in fact install them on lampposts, street lights, which is very interesting considering the fact that IntelliStreets have come out with the new Orwellian street lights, which record conversations. They double as CCTV cameras, billboards for homeland security, fear-mongering announcements. So it's all geared towards putting these mobile naked body scanners either in street lights or on these roving vans which go around your street, go down the highways and just randomly scan crowds of people, completely against the Fourth Amendment, completely unsafe. All these top doctors have come out and said that it leads to an increase in cancer, and then when they do that, the TSA just comes back and says no. John Hopkins said that there were no links to cancer whatsoever, even though they said the opposite. And then you've got Columbia University, University of California Interagency Committee on Radiation Safety, which is the premier radiation safety organization in the world. You've got MIT. You've got all these universities who come out and say, no, it's not safe and it is going to lead to an increase in cancer. And then the TSA always comes back, DHS, and just says, no, they said that it's safe. So they just brazenly lie to the public time and time again. And now we've got this new story out of CNET, which is related to the borders. DHS X-ray scanners could be cancer risk to border crossers. So now it's going to be in that context, and it's unfolding out to every context of public life as the TSA becomes this occupying army. Now they've got the FPS, the Federal Bureau Protective Service, which is basically the DHS's occupying Gestapo force. They turned up at a Florida Social Security office just over a week ago and started checking people's IDs. These DHS goons armed with semi-automatic guns, while others, you know, drove around the block, cased the joint in DHS cars. So it's literally, I've called it an occupying force, and it just manifests itself in more of those precise ways as we go along. But
well, you know, it's martial law being rolled out incrementally until you're there. And it's all about setting the precedent to totally take over our society. And every movie you watch about an authoritarian society, or every documentary you watch about real authoritarian societies, this is it. They're not even trying to hide it. And they're a bunch of crooks that deal drugs and ship guns into Mexico and engage in every other crime you can imagine. There's no doubt we have a treasonous criminal group running the government.
And I mean, remember the story about, they were talking about fitting people, passengers on aeroplanes, completely innocent travellers going on their vacation, with taser shock bracelets. So anytime some official in a position of authority got scared, they could just shock the entire plane into submission. I mean, these are the kind of ideas that these control freaks come out with. And go and watch the video for the fast screening program, DHS, which is where they erect all these mobile units outside public events, and they literally interrogate every single person before they're allowed into the event. It's a behavioural analysis of their facial reactions when they're asked certain questions. And that technology, it's now been announced, is already in some airports and is going in many other major airports. So every incremental step just gets crazier and crazier, and it outstrips anything that you could read about in Orwell's 1984.
But it's to keep us safe from the al-Qaeda that's been given control of Libya and is being funded to attack Syria. Thank you, Paul Watson. Great report. I want to get a big report out explaining to people that the system knows that they're giving people cancer with these scanners, and maybe some screenshots of the different newscasts showing the families driving under the scanners with the military standing there being barbecued. Thank you, Paul Watson.
Thanks, Alex.
All right. Now, I know I said I'd go to your calls, and we are going to your calls. We're going to go to Ezekiel, and then we're going to go to Pat, and then we're going to go to Chris, Chuck, Sean, and others. Ezekiel in Kentucky, thanks for holding. I meant to go to your calls earlier, but I went crazy thinking about the cancer from all these scanners going in and how they know it's killing people and just how psychopathically evil this is. Ezekiel, welcome.
Thank you. I got three quick questions for you and a comment. first about chemtrails. Last week over Southwest Ohio, I witnessed the worst chemtrailing I've ever seen. I counted at least 18 high-altitude sprayers before I lost track. I got some pictures. But I'm starting to believe now that they're using drones for this, because I've been observing this for almost 10 years now, and recently I've been trying to use 10x binoculars to observe these planes, and even with binoculars, I still can't get a clear visual on these craft. The first question is, do you think there's a connection between chemtrails and Project Bluebeam, and do you think Project Bluebeam could be implemented this year?
All right, I appreciate your call. Project Bluebeam is a government program that part of it's been leaked to have a fake alien invasion to make the public do whatever the government says. It's a form of false flag, staged event. I don't know. I know Hollywood's always getting the public ready for that. I know world leaders have said that it can be used someday. As for chemtrails, there's a whole bunch of different programs. There's low altitude, high altitude. The government admits that there are thousands of government tests going on for weather modification. But 99% of the activist community never looks at any of the admissions. They just speculate. But there's films on it. We've covered it. There is a geoengineering program going on. The White House science czar admits they are. Pat in New York, you're on the air. Welcome.
Hey, Alex. How's it going, man?
Good, sir.
I just wanted to get a little Ron Paul news out there. I actually just saw a video. I believe it was yesterday. Tom Woods was talking about Operation Grandma. I don't know if you heard about this.
No, tell me about it.
It's about getting it's about talking to your grandparents, your grandmothers and grandparents about Ron Paul, because most of the time, they get most of their news from CNN, Fox News, all the mainstream media channels. And my grandma has a computer in the house, but she never uses it. And she always talks about, Obama's doing good, but if Congress only worked with them, and and I started telling her about Ron Paul and how he's the only one that's not corruptible, and just all this stuff. And Operation Grandma, Thomas Woods actually talks about it. I just wanted to get that out there. Because
so you're saying go over to Grandma's house, get her computer working, and show her Ron Paul videos.
Exactly. Either that or just talk to her about Ron Paul, what he stands for.
I agree. That's how you defeat tyrants, is everybody talking to everybody. Everybody reaching out to each other and pointing out what's going on. Great points. Good to hear from you. Let's go ahead and talk to Chuck in Michigan. Chuck, you're on the air.
Hey, how you doing, Alex?
I'm doing great, brother. How about you?
I'm actually seeing some snow for the first time here in Michigan because they haven't sprayed for the past 5 days. But that's for another time. I wanted to talk about how this is my personal belief that Chicago is going to be turned into the Warsaw Ghetto due to the fact that it's a transportation hub, and they keep wanting to do all this high-speed rail. And as it is, all the rail lines in the entire country stem from Chicago.
Well, an Indiana-based news outfit called The Newspaper interviewed a right-on-the-border Indiana county commissioner. And I learned the guy's identity, but obviously we voice-changed him and, everything. When we got him on air one time for a short interview, it was taped interview, and then he also did another interview. And I've since confirmed it, and now a lot of it's actually come out. They've been training for millions of dead, locking down Chicago, in the surrounding counties around it, and around Illinois for a long time. Go ahead.
Right. Why else would the president's right-hand man, Rahm Emanuel, take a job as a mayor? That makes no sense whatsoever unless something sinister is up.
Well, he can grandstand as the savior when the terrorists hit.
Yeah, the boogeyman who lives 5,000 miles away. Anyways, I also wanted to talk a little quick story about something that happened to me at the VA hospital about a year ago. I was down there, and I seen a TSA agent, and I got kind of a smart mouth, and I said something to him. I said, "So how many times you stuck your hand down a 5-year-old's pants this week?" And this guy, he was about to swing on me, and he started to push me, and I just kept backing up. Luckily, the VA police came and escorted this guy, but this guy was screaming at me like he wanted to kill me. And, this guy...
Well, how many have been busted now raping kids and dealing drugs and robbing people? And, it's just, look, only an idiot would take that job, or a criminal.
Oh, yeah, this guy had total anger issues. And,
No, it's all about his power over people. He's going to enjoy the power of being barbecued by that radiation.
Yes, sir. Luckily the VA police were on my side, they seem to be okay down there because most of them are expats too. So
he didn't like you asking him about sticking his hand down 5-year-old's pants. I mean, that's his profession. Is dumbing. I mean, literally, the psychologists are in mainstream news saying it's teaching kids to let pedophiles like Sandusky, I guess, have their way. It's like that testing they reportedly do, and so kids that have been trained to be touched, well, now it's I guess fair game, and you're not supposed to, in a free country, have people groping your children's genitals, but it's all part of globalist training, slave training. Great points. We're going to come back with another call from Illinois. That guy was from Michigan. Sean in Illinois, Chris, Brian, Tim, your calls are all coming up. Then Gerald Celente and a ton of other economic and world news. Stay with us. There are... All right, going back to your phone calls. Coming up in about 10 minutes, we're going to have the one, the only... Gerald Celente on with us to cover world news, the economy, and break down more of his Trends Journal predictions for this year and the next as well. And we'll continue with your phone calls while Gerald is on with us. Then we have Bob Chapman joining us. But I'm also going to play a clip from Andy Griffin's show, Mayberry, just to show you how TV has changed since the 50s till now. I mean, just think about all the stuff that's there. It's all designed for mind rot, basically, and to dumb the population down. One of my biggest problems is that I tend to focus on just the news propaganda, but the real propaganda is embedded in the culture, in the video games, in the TV. That's where you see it. Let's go ahead and go to Sean in Illinois. Sean, you're on the air.
Hey, how's it going, Alex?
Hey, buddy.
How's it going? Yeah, I just want to touch base. So you guys were talking about how, they have these scanners now, and, the government denies the fact that they cause cancer. This takes people back to, about like 50 years back when they used to spray DDT. They sprayed it from 1945 to 1970. They were saying that at the time was actually perfectly healthy. There was nothing wrong with that. And then, years later, they got people popping up with cancer and stuff, and they banned it completely. And my dad actually a while back was talking about this, and there's a video, I think it's under the rise and fall of DDT on YouTube, and it actually shows a scientist who says, oh, there's nothing wrong with this, and he's eating DDT. He's literally eating pills of this to prove that there's nothing wrong with it. But come to find out, it causes cancer. The same kind of thing that's going on here. Like, you got the scientist saying, this isn't going to do anything to you, but that's what they were saying back then. And that guy probably died of that kind of sickness,
Well, to be clear, I've studied DDT in depth, so it's a little of both. The eugenicist wanted to ban it because it was saving about 15 million lives a year, but it did have some toxicity. And so the chemical company said it was perfectly fine. They showed kids playing in it with the DDT trucks driving around. My mother in Austin growing up, they would run behind the trucks with the DDT spraying out of it, and that was shown on the newsreels. But at the same time, then, when they banned it because it's such an inexpensive poison, it did cause massive deaths. So there's a cost-benefit analysis there. But what about Agent Orange? What about the vaccines with cancer viruses in them? Again, a lot of this is on purpose.
I feel like in 50 years from now, we're going to look back, and they're going to say, like, all the stuff. You always hear people calling on your radio station about chemtrails because it's such a big deal. Here in Illinois, I see them almost on a daily basis outside of my house, like tons of them, too, just littering the sky. I feel like in 50 years from now, people are going to look back and say, the government's going to say, yeah, we made a mistake. It caused, these kind of problems, and we shouldn't have done it. It's going to be just like the DDT type of thing.
Well, I agree with you, and I appreciate your call. Look, expanding on that, we'll come back and take a few more calls, and Gerald Celente is going to join us. Expanding on that, a lot of times the threats they tell us about are minor issues, or they're things that the patent is running out on, and the establishment wants to charge you a lot more for something. It's like when the patent on Freon ran out. They had new systems to replace it, so they banned